Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and the next challenge I decided to tackle for the league was building around the Doryani prototype new unique chest. If you're unfamiliar with what it does, essentially it gives you a benefit for having lower lightning resist. So it says that nearby enemies will have the same lightning resist as you. So if you have negative lightning resist, nearby enemies will also have negative lightning resist. The nearby range is actually rather large. You can go out and test it just by getting some crappy lightning res and then standing out in an open field and having some monsters run near you, and you'll notice that it's damn near screen wide. So nearby is actually pretty good, and thus I thought, yeah, this thing ain't too bad to build around. So the idea is for you to get no lightning res on any of your gear, and actually even go into further negatives if you can with, currently the way I'm doing it is with a couple of Ventor rings and a Thread of Hope, but there's a few other bits and pieces you can do if you really want to as well, and ultimately we're at minus 129 lightning res, so everything around me has minus 129 lightning res, and you can see that the build shreds. So I decided that I wanted to do Mjolnir arc with it, and as an assassin, because it runs pretty damn fast, it fixes your crit, and then on top of that, when you have really bad lightning res, I kinda figured I don't want to be standing still too often, and I want something that's fairly streamlined, and something that is fairly fast in getting the packs down. So that was going to be Mjolnir and arc as well. And as you can see, yeah, we basically are untouchable during maps for the most part, and the lightning res issue is not much of an issue. But you do still try and fix the lightning damage incoming, because having minus 129 lightning res at all times is just not playable if you're just going to leave it like that. So we do have Divine Flesh Keystone from the Timeless Jewel, which converts 50% of our LE damage taken to Chaos, and then you use an Avian Twins Amulet, Talisman, with the implicit of 50% of lightning damage taken as cold. So all of our lightning damage is being absorbed as cold or chaos, and then you stack your chaos as high as possible, which goes up to 88 in my case at the moment, and whenever you take damage as cold, some of that goes to chaos too. So all in all, you do actually mitigate a lot of the lightning to not be that shitty. Supposedly, the degen lightning that exists in the game is still kind of a problem. We're talking like barren squares and some eradicator beams and some various shit like that. Basically, it doesn't really exist, but for the barren mechanics in the Conqueror fight, and also the influence that they spawn, it will be kind of annoying at times, and I have yet to come across any of that matters. I've only had a couple of barren influences, I think, thus far, and they didn't even drop squares, so whatever. But I don't think it's that big of an issue, and it actually seems like a very strong item to build around. With this negative lightning res, it means I don't need to get any lightning penetration, means I don't need to have an ascendancy that has anything like that, and I can focus on just pure raw damage. And it's been a very thick damaging character, and just buttery clear through all content. And it does seem like a pretty nifty way of getting a bunch of lightning scaling into lightning builds, but you got to keep in mind that you can only do lightning damage. It's a similar item to plenty of other items where it only lets you do one type of damage, and in this item it says can deal nothing other than lightning damage. So you can't use Zeri Flask to get some leech and chaos, you can't really justify Trickster, you can't convert some of your damage to cold and start using Call of Brotherhoods, so you can't use just any corpse exploding techniques really as well, as you can see here, except for perhaps the gloves, Asenath gloves, but I don't really think they're particularly worthwhile. So what we have here is a character that hits hard as balls, but it won't be exploding corpses, so that's kind of a bit lackluster at times. Though you can see with the Celestial Arc MTX, it is still rather aesthetically pleasing, but dangerous to leave all these corpses around. And also you are pure lightning, so you can't do any other sort of damage, which is a bit unfortunate too. But it makes sense because it'll be a little too easy to fix plenty of problems, and at the same time, maybe build even more overpowered versions of the character. But your chest slot is locked in, so you can't do some other fancy things like explosion chests. You can see Val arc, and just this level of arc and cyclone butteriness is insane. This is a tier 16, as juiced map as I can make it without putting delirium orbs on there, with beyonds and all kinds of sextants and strong boxes, and it just feels so goddamn good. Now, I'm not sure that that's really all the chest. Maybe that's just Mjolnir Assassin, but hey, I don't know. The chest seems to be going real well, and it's actually not as bad as I first thought when I thought I was going to be building into this thing, and yeah, could recommend so far. So let's get into how I've built it so far. So here we are with our character. Don't tase me, bro, please. Please, because the other name was taken. Don't tase me, bro, because, well, I kind of didn't want a tasing knowing I was going to get a lot of minus lightning res. Turns out it's not that big an issue. In any case, the item we are building around is this extremely common and what seemingly is rather shite chest, Doryani's prototype. So deals no non-lightning damage, armor applies to lightning damage taken from hits, so your armor can then help mitigate lightning instead of your lightning res, but that's not really the angle we're taking. Lightning res does not affect lightning damage taken, and then nearby enemies have lightning resistance equal to yours. So what's happening here is that we currently have minus 129 lightning res because we have default minus 60 just from completing the campaign. I then have 2 Ventor's rings that I just grabbed some divines on, grabbed a couple of shit Ventor rings, and then divined them until I got some minus light res and hopefully some life, some fire, some cold. In this case, we got some pretty good ones in the form of fire and cold and minus lightning, as you can see here. Now, if you put on resist catalysts as well, it can make it go even more negative because the maximum is minus 25 negative, but mine is sitting at minus 23, which gets up to minus 27. So I got 2 of those guys, and then on top of that, I'm using 1 Thread of Hope, which is a minus 20 LE res. Of course, you want the worst possible roll because it gives more damage, and that gets us to our current total. You can also run a Malagara's lens, which I did for a little bit. Let me just pull that up for you, which is this guy here, minus 50 res. So we're at minus 179, and that's fine. It makes your lightning a lot lower, but it makes your cold and fire a little bit harder to build around. And I ended up replacing it simply because it's really damn easy to make a fat fucking lightning shield, and it's a lot more damage. Just because we don't have that much percent damage in the build, a lot of percent damage from a shield, and then the +1, the focus, life, chaos res, all of that easily outweighs a Malagara's. So if you can get a better shield, definitely do that like this. It's pretty damn easy to craft. To start with, all I did was go find a shield that had spell damage and life. Cost me like 30C, I think. You can then slam lightning onto it. If it's got, you know, no room for suffixes, it has to give you the +1 lightning. You can then slam caster until you get crit. Reroll caster, but rerolling caster is very risky, so typically you're just slamming caster as a suffix, removing the suffix through either remove speed or remove crit, and then slamming caster. But we hit the crit first try, put on some chaos first try, and that's not very hard to do, and then some double damage focus, and you got yourself a really beefy shield. We're using a Mjolnir just to get another arc in the setup, so it's awakened lightning damage, arc, and inspiration. This here does not trigger inspiration, but if you have inspiration charges up from your cyclone setup, then this gets affected as well. So our main setup here is cyclone, cast on crit, added lightning damage, Val arc, inspiration, and crit strikes. Crit strikes is there just so that cyclone has some good crit rate, because without it, it's not terrific, and our crit on arc is already really good, but with the crit rate, unfortunately, it goes well over 100. It's just kind of a, you know, waste, but is what it is, because we need a more reliable cyclone proc rate, so we have to pretty much use crit strikes just to get rid of that easily. Now, Don't know what else to say about that. It's pretty basic, cast on crit sort of setup. The entire character is kind of just a cast on crit character, which isn't too fancy. The difference is that you're trying to just get a bit of minus lightning res and then trying to figure out a way to get through that. So that's with one of these amulets. I just bought the best one I could with some stats and life, which was basically a piece of shit, but ideally you make amulets that are good and then go ahead and Jorgen them in your tier 2 research, which I don't think I currently have. No, there he is. So if you tier 2 research Jorgen over and over again on like amulets that are decent, something like this guy, eventually you will get the implicit. So if I'm going to try playing this character long term, I will try and get an amulet that looks like this, but has these sorts of stats. This was a previous attempt because we're always going to be anointing Command of Steel as well, and wearing this thing is like a 30% increase in damage or so, like 30% more. And I have tried it out without this amulet, and as long as you're not getting hit by lightning damage, most of the time we're not, it's completely fine. So you can try out without even using a Avian Twins, and most of the time you should be fine as long as you are shitting on content at all times, and we are. But the other end of the equation is Divine Flesh. So all damage taken bypasses Energy Shield. Our Energy Shield becomes completely useless. You can't even use it for Eldritch Battery, because if we do Eldritch Battery, then we don't get Inspiration, we don't get Arcane Surge, and it feels kind of shitty. But you can if you want to not use those things, because then you can reserve all your mana, and your mana is completely fixed. So that is kind of nice, but it means you can't use Inspiration or Arcane Surge. You then have 50 LE damage taken as Chaos, which means you have to boost your Chaos really high, and in this case there's also 10 max Chaos, and this small cluster jewel that gets us 3 max Chaos. We are currently at 88 Chaos Res, and with the Harvest crafting, it's pretty damn easy to get Chaos Res wherever you want it. So we've got some there, we got some there, I think I put some there, and with bit on the passive tree from this shit here, if you craft the right type of small cluster like this, it always comes with 12 to start with, and then you can slam a Chaos suffix, and that should get you some Chaos Res. So each of these hits for 16, and then the 3 max there. It's pretty damn easy to cap Chaos on this sort of situation. Our Thread of Hope currently gives Glancing Blows, and we are block capped with Roomies up. Even without Roomies, it's pretty good block. What is it at the moment? 58% chance. Grab some of these, bit of these, and we do get damage from the block over here as well. And then, like I said, once we can anoint, if we can anoint, for example, on this type of amulet, and turn it into a talisman, you get Command of Steel, because that's 75% damage as well. The rest of the passive tree I think is rather straightforward. Get power charges as much as we can. Strength is kind of tough to fix, so we have to get the strength node here currently. But there's strength on just about all of my gear to make it accommodatable. So yeah, there's that. And for this you need a Zibakwa. I did divine a lot of these, like maybe 50, and tried them out here, 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 here. I think this is the easiest one without really sacrificing points, and ideally you're getting something with these small passives. Chances are you won't, but if you can, that'd be really cool. And if you can, branch down here and pick up some good notables here. There can be some good ones like lightning damage and leech, chaos, max chaos res, but currently I've just got some resists and I kept this one, but turns out I don't really need these resists. So we can try and make a better one of these and branch out a bit better, but currently this is all I've got on this guy. I might still do a cluster jewel that ends up doing lightning and something else, because Overshock is going to be fairly potent with how hard we hit. So I'm going to look into Overshock and a large cluster, maybe a small respec. And we can also get another Thread of Hope here, I think, to pick up just something, because minus 20 lightning res is still pretty nice, even at this stage, compared to my current thing that just gives 2 crit multi-rolls. It's a 2-prop jewel, which can be replaced, I think. Aside from that though, yeah, passive tree is just an assassin tree. We go down here first, then these, then this, and then we got a Watcher's Eye that takes care of my leech, and also got some lightning damage with Wrath, since this thing was worth like 100C. No one cares about this stuff except me. who happened to get a great deal. But that's how we leech in the build: vitality, damage leeched as life. And you do really need some sort of life leech. Ideally, I think you can get life leech from this guy. There's a certain node that will give you lightning damage and leech, which I don't have nearby, but that would be the best way of solving it. But this is how we get leech, and you really do need leech. Sustain sucks without any sort of leech on this build, at least that's how I've felt. So prioritize the vitality. Obviously, if you can get the lightning damage or something like that, that's cool as well. But we do reserve with Wrath, precision, and vitality, because getting accuracy is a bit of a bitch as well. Currently at 88%, and that's with accuracy here and here. But if we can do a different amulet, that will make accuracy a lot nicer as well. The helm does have +1 power charge. It's just a warlord helm that I grabbed a regular sort of arc chains enchant, slammed warlord onto it, and then it's really easy to make. You can slam crit and it has to be power charge as a prefix. You can slam attack on suffix and it has to be one of like 3 accuracy suffixes. So we just did this one. And I just made a helm that was to start with life and strength. Pretty damn easy stuff. Harvest crafting OP, good that it's going, right? I'll make a video on that later, I think. So yeah, that's the gear, that's the character. Holy shit, this thing is actually pretty insane in the right build. I've yet to really come into any downsides or super pitfalls like the lightning degen, but we're only just starting to touch the end game because I've leveled super fast doing balls deep maps, and I'm 91 already with, I don't know how long, 14 hours, and that's with some figuring out and crafting in this build. So it's been going fast, and as you can see here, for example, just the damage, the average hit is 340,000 for arc, and traditionally I think the highest I've ever had on like cast on crit or poet's pen or Mjolnir or whatever arcs is something like 150, maybe 200,000. So these are big damage numbers. That's without the Valrighteous Fire going up. That's without using the other amulet. If we use the real amulet, then it goes up way higher. But I don't know how often I'm going to be using that amulet just yet. And then you can see the real arc setup as well. The one in the Mjolnir, 230,000. Those are some big procs. And you can also see exactly what our chest is doing by going down here. You tick everything you need to tick. And to simulate the chest, you do minus 129 lightning res here. If we take that away, our damage is currently 66k because we have no penetration, no minus res or anything. And then you do 129 and you got yourself some big damage increase. So if we can get another thread of hope in, that'll put us at 149 and that'll be just a little bit nicer. But I don't know if it's super worth it because there is definitely diminishing returns to lightning res. As you get more and more of it, it becomes weaker and weaker, as it does make sense. So that's the character for now. Hopefully I will have a better endgame video coming up soon. It seems like it's going to slap. I'm probably going to take it a few more levels because it's a lot of fun and seems like probably the most worthwhile character for me to invest some time in for endgame so far. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.